Hello, welcome to my mini manga mentions, where I'll be giving a mini review and recommendation of favorite manga that I love. This week's mini manga mention is, as a reincarnated aristocrat, I use my appraisal skill to rise in the world, or Tensei Kizoku Kante Skill di Nariagaru, written and illustrated by Natsumi Inoue. There are currently 9 Japanese volumes and 4 English volumes, plus 3 Japanese light novels, and an English translation slated for January 2023. So, today we're only going to focus on the manga because that's what I read. Now, the premise is, an ordinary salaryman dies one day and is reborn as Ars Luvon, the son of a noble. Although he isn't really talented in magic or swordplay, he has the unique skill that no one else possesses, appraisal. And with this ability, he can determine a person's current strength, how much potential they hold, and where their talents lie. The story is basically about him growing and rising to rule his territory. For a part action, part slice of life manga, it's very good at showing the growth of his characters both mentally and physically, like I just said. It even often subverts expectations and brings the story and characters into situations where the reader normally wouldn't expect, which really aids the flow of the story and the growth of their characters. These characters are lovable and the story is very exciting and satisfying. The only gripe I have with the manga is that, taking place in a fantasy world, it's kind of hard to keep up with the various names of all different places in the world, or even names of side characters, like different nobles that you wouldn't normally need to know. There are also a few times where there's a very large info dump about the world and the backstory and places within it, and these are kind of boring and useless because it's just such a large dump of information that you don't really need to know for the current story that's going on. It's really hard to remember and take note of. And it's not just limited to this manga either. There are many fantasy manga that do this. It's never really good. Luckily, skipping the portion doesn't really matter in this manga because you don't really need to know it. This is the first of many, and I cannot stress this enough, many Isekai manga I read, have read, and will review and recommend. Overall, I give this manga an 8 out of 10. The characters are great, watching them grow in power and as people is very satisfying. And while the world's story is kind of hard to follow, it's not that essential. The story that follows the main characters typically ignores it, which is oddly enough to the manga's benefit. This really is a read that will essentially force you to connect with its characters and care about them more than the overall story, which isn't a bad thing because the overall story doesn't matter until later, I'd say. You never really need to know the overall story, honestly, as long as you're focusing on the characters. And that may sound weird, and it is, but that's kind of takes to how the story wants to center around these characters in the world that they're creating. I really recommend this manga, and I hope you enjoy it. But that was all for today's MMM. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.